For me, this is the universal side dish, Bombay potatoes or masala aloo, whatever you want to call it, but it's just a way of jazzing up your potatoes and making them a little bit more exciting. This is probably the dish that I always cook at last minute whenever I've got a dinner party, because I always panic that there's not going to be enough food. And you can bet your bottom dollar it's the dish that my friends say, oh, how did you make that? Can I have the recipe? So it's a really lovely dish. And I'm going to start off by just heating up some oil, just some vegetable oil in a wide base pan. I usually cook this in my Indian wok or my karai, but you know, if you've got a little frying pan, that's fine, that suits. I'm going to start off by putting in a teaspoon of mustard seeds, and as soon as they hit the hot oil, they'll start to pop, and you'll know that you're ready to go in with your next ingredient. You'll start to smell a little bit of pungency coming from them. Just going to give that a little stir and get those heating through. Just as they start to pop, I'm going to put in my curry leaves, and these just give a really lovely sort of curry fragrance. So as soon as that starts to pop, I'm going to put in probably about 5 or 6, maybe about 10 or 11, just because I like them, and they look really good in the end of the dish. So there we go. I'm going to give that a little stir. Whilst they're sizzling away, I'm going to very quickly slice my onion. And I like to use slices for this rather than small dices, just because I like the way they sort of curl around the potato in the end dish. So just slice your onions to a couple of centimetres thick whilst your mustard seeds are cooking away. Okay, give that a stir. And as with any whole spices, as soon as you can hear them, as soon as you can smell them, you know you're ready to go in with your next ingredient. And these are taking a little bit longer. If ever you burn your spices, so if you leave them in there for too long and you burn them, you must get rid of them, because there's nothing you can do to get rid of that bitter taste that they leave. Even if you add sugar, cream, whatever you want to, you'll never get rid of that flavour. So it's really important that you just get rid of it and start again. So into that, we'll just pop our sliced onion. And because this is a vegetable dish, we don't want to brown our onions too much, because it's light and it's fragrant. And you want the vegetable to speak for itself. So all we're going to do is just cook them until they go a beautiful goldeny brown colour. And this is quite a dry dish, and when I say dry, that sort of in English terminology has sort of not very nice connotations with food, but I don't mean dry I just mean it's not got a sauce to it and everything's clinging to those potatoes. So whilst those are cooking, I'm going to start to grind up some of the spices that I'm using in this dish. And what I'm going to use is some cumin seeds. And cumin seeds are really for that earthiness. And what they do is they bring out almost like a natural sweetness in your dish. So I'm going to put in 1.5 teaspoons of those, and some coriander seeds. And what coriander does is it adds almost like a lemony zing to your dish. So I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of those. And just using my pestle and mortar, I'm just going to bash them up. And you don't need to get to a fine powder, but you just want to make sure you break the seeds up. I always say to people, use the space that you've got. It's not just about pounding like that, it's about grinding them. There we go. Make sure you keep an eye on your onions as well, because you don't want them to burn. So continue to grind that. Coriander seeds tend to almost go papery thin when you grind them, but you know, don't worry about that. I always say, especially with vegetable dishes and very plain dishes like this, use fresh whole spices and grind them yourself, because the aromatics that you'll get and the flavour, or the final flavour, will be so much nicer with whole spices than pre-bought powders. So that's what I'm looking for. Not particularly fine, just, you know, fairly coarse, but everything's crushed and bashed up. Okay, so the onions are coming on, they're getting there. Not quite ready, I want them to go a little bit more goldeny brown than that. So whilst we're waiting for that, I'm just going to chop up some chilli. Now, I like my Bombay potatoes or masala potatoes really quite spicy. So I'm going to put in 2 whole green chillies. And it's really important that you chop them up as finely as you possibly can, because you don't want great big chunks of chilli when you bite down on the potatoes. You want it all to sort of blend together. Now, different people make these kind of potatoes in lots of different ways. Some people add tomatoes, you can put spinach in there. I'm just going to keep it really simple today and just have it with just my plain potatoes. Okay, so that's looking pretty good to me. So into that, I'm going to start to add all of the other bits and pieces. So I'm going to put in a teaspoon of salt, just for seasoning. I'm going to put in my turmeric. Half a teaspoon is more than enough. I'm going to pop in my ground spices. And I'm also going to add just an extra little kick with a little bit more chili powder, but you know, that's optional for you. If you don't want to do that, then by all means you don't have to. Cook any dish to how you like it. If you like it more spicy, then add more spice. If you don't like it spicy, then you know, miss it out completely. When I cook this for my children, for example, I won't put any chilli in at all. So just that chilli. I'm going to give that a little stir. So once you put your spices in, you need to work quite quickly. So make sure you've got your potatoes ready beforehand. And I've chopped them up all to the same sort of size. So sort of 2-3 centimetre cubes. That way they'll cook fairly quickly and they'll all cook at the same rate. So once you've got your spices in your pan, you'll start to feel it at the back of your throat and you'll feel the chilli. You've got to make sure that you don't burn your spices. So once they've almost just toasted, then pop in your potatoes and give that a stir through and just coat. So you're just coating them. And this is what I mean by it's a dry dish. You can see there's no liquid in there. It's fairly dry, but we will add a little bit of water later just to help those potatoes start to steam through. But I don't want to do that unless I really have to. There we go. So all the potatoes are coated. What I'm going to do now is just turn it right down to the lowest setting, and I'm going to pop the lid on, and I'm going to keep an eye on it, because if it does start to stick, if the potatoes start to stick to the base of the pan, I'm just going to pop in a little dash of water. There we go. The potatoes have been cooking for about 10 minutes or so I'm just going to have a look at them and just give them a stir through. They're looking really good. I can just see that they're starting to catch at the bottom of the pan, so I'm going to pop in a little splash of water. What that will do is just deglaze the bottom of the pan and just lift all of those lovely flavours off the bottom of the pan, but also just help them to steam and cook through. So give them a stir, pop the lid back on and leave them for another 20 minutes. The potatoes are ready now, so let's have a look and dish them up. I might have a little taste first, actually, just to, yeah, see, they're lovely and soft. And hot. Lovely kick to them. Delicious. Right, ready to serve those up. So here is your, if you like to call it, your main side dish. The dish that you'll get asked for. And now you've got the recipe to tell your friends how to do it. I'm going to top it off with some coriander, and then you're good to go.